we'll go ahead and get started. I'm so excited as you guys, oh my gosh, people are tuning in. We have some folks. If you're live from LinkedIn, let me know. We have Twitter. We have about 50 million Facebook pages. So I'm super excited. But glad you guys can join me on a Monday. I'm super duper excited for this discussion. And I could not do this by myself. Good evening, Kendall. I'm going to put your comment on the screen because we appreciate you so much. Thanks for tuning in LinkedIn land. But I wanted to have a discussion about this blue check. If I see one more notification about how much money we are spending on buying these blue checks, and we got nonprofits that need funding, we got fundraisers going on and all sorts of stuff, I'm gonna go crazy. But instead of me just giving you my opinion, because I always think of things in terms of PR and branding, I'm struggling because I don't know how to advise my clients at the current moment. I definitely wanted to bring in an expert. So I would love to just welcome Dr. Jada Jackson to my lovely, let's just say, social media platform. And eventually this will be on PR Yourself with Leah Frazier podcast. So we can have this discussion with a licensed professional counselor and mental health professional.
So hello, everybody. Hello.
And Clydel's already chiming in. He's like, from LinkedIn, he just says, I haven't bought the blue check, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Well, Clydel, I want you to, we've done some events together. I definitely want you to chime in because you have a pretty major brand. But welcome, Dr. Jada. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about yourself? Because we met on the set of Good Morning Texas doing a couple of Say Yes to You segments together, but why don't you fill us in?
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. I'm just excited to be here with the wonderful, amazing Leah. And so as Leah mentioned, we met on the set of WFAA. And so I'm a licensed mental health counselor and licensed professional counselor. And I see clients, it's a broad range, but my sweet spot would be in the area of mood disorders, trauma more specifically. And then I also have the pleasure of working with the celebrities, and that's kind of what I do. I have that niche of doing that, working with the NBA, the Major League Baseball Association, the WWE, and some of the largest corporations in the world, which I have a chance to educate in that corporate training space. So that's what I do. Lee and I were just talking about how busy we are. I've just been away for a couple of weeks and I'm getting back in the swing of things here today. So yeah, I'm just glad to be here today, Leah.
And I'm so honored to have your time for just a little bit. And I was just telling you, Dr. Jada, I was like, weren't you somewhere? She's like, yeah, I've been gone for like 2 weeks. So I'm happy that you hopped on just for a little bit for us to have this discussion. But so here's where I want to go with this. And for anybody tuning in, if you've kind of been, going back and forth on whether or not you should indulge and buy this blue check, or you're seeing a lot of people buying the blue check. And there's so many funny memes going on. So one of the ones that I saw on Hollywood Unlocked was hilarious. So when it first started around April, they posted Instagram sold 44 million blue checks in one day at $15 a check.
Ooh.
That is $660 million that they made just because y'all want to be somebody y'all not. Let me say, I am not passing judgment, and I want that to be the theme throughout the entire discussion, is that we're not passing judgment on folks. But it was just funny, but it more stood out the numbers to me that there was 44 million blue checks on Instagram sold in one day. Now we'll go to Twitter, which also started selling their blue checks. And so Daily Loud reported that Twitter reportedly made 11 million in 3 months from users buying a blue check. And there's been this back and forth discussion, even amongst celebrities, of do I buy it? Do I not buy it? And even Elon Musk just went ahead and bought LeBron James's because LeBron, I'm not buying no blue check. So Elon was like, I paid the $5 for LeBron James.
Right, right.
But as you're seeing this, Dr. Jada, online, like, what were your initial thoughts when you saw that we're taking away the blue checks and the verification, and now you have to buy it?
Well, first of all, we all knew the blue check as being something we couldn't have unless we were famous, we had a certain level of a brand, or at one point, and Leah, you clarify this for me, you had to have 10,000 followers at one point to get the blue check. Was that accurate?
Yeah. So at one point in time on Instagram, you had, well, you know what? I'll clarify it even further, Dr.
Yeah.
Jada. You had to have a minimum of the 10,000
Mhm.
followers. Someone asked, what is a blue check? So the blue check is if you go to Instagram or even Facebook or Twitter, you may see some users that have a blue check next to their name, which essentially means you've been verified. But over time, I believe it started out as a verification. It started out as somebody could steal your identity. And so
Right.
what we have to do is we're going to give you this blue check next to your name so that when people see, and 9 times out of 10, it was celebrities, it was athletes.
Right.
When somebody sees your account on Instagram or on Twitter or on Facebook, we can let them know that it's really you versus the 50 other fake accounts out there that does not.
Correct.
That's what it started out as.
Yep.
Then it kind of morphed into what you were asking, where now Instagram and Facebook, they created a validation and verification process. Where on Instagram, yes, you had to have a certain minimum number of followers, and then they changed that later on.
Correct.
And then you have to, there's even more specific specifications where they wanted to see that you receive top tier media coverage, and not just over the span of your brand. They wanted to make sure you had it within a certain number of months. And I believe at one point it was you had to have had national top tiered coverage within like a 6-month span. So we're talking maybe a Forbes, a Essence, a BET, a Good Morning America, whatever, within 6 months. And you have to prove that you are a personality or a celebrity, and then, oh, we'll give you this check. And so what ends up happening as a society, they end up building like this social hierarchy, you know?
About that.
Yes.
Yes, let's talk about that, because really that's the psychology behind all of this, right? Because the social hierarchy has been in place, as far back as we can remember. But essentially, what it says is you're either a have or you are a have not. You're either someone who means something, you have some form of influence, and I think that this is important, whether it's financial, whether it is your ability to influence others, whatever that thing is that you have that allows you to separate from others, we've always been in search of that. And so, one thing I want to drill down into, Leah, if I could just take a moment. Many years ago, during my doctoral research, one of the things that I studied was the acquisition of self-concept. And so, what does that mean? That means the study of how people acquire self-concept. But when we think about self-concept, originally someone may say, well, what is that? Well, it is self-esteem, because self-concept and self-esteem can be used interchangeably. However, self-concept it's either our set of beliefs, our attitudes that we have about ourselves. It would include some of our personality traits. It would include our values. It may include our physical abilities, and to some degree, even our physical traits. Hint, hint, beauty, right? So when we look at how we can identify self-concept, we have to look at 6 domains. And this is part of the research that I did. And those 6 domains are as follows. The first is academic. So we see the social construct in academia, right? Because if you go to Yale or Harvard, you are in a certain category. But if you go to the University of Phoenix, then you got your degree in some alternative from an alternative route. So that's the academia. Then we have affect. That's our emotional intelligence. How emotionally intelligent and mature are you to handle difficulties in life? Right. So that's a stage. The third one would be your competency. It's, do you feel you're competent enough to achieve certain things? And then there's our family, which would be our family of origin. And then we slide into our physical appearance. How do we feel about ourselves and how we look and how we show up in the world? And then finally, the sixth one would be social. It's our ability to connect in that social space. So this is really a discussion, Leah, about how we feel about ourselves. And I know probably most people don't want to hear that, but it really is, right?
I have a question for you, and because when you lay it out like that, there's so many layers. But I also think about how after I've watched a million documentaries and myself just reading up on how a lot of the way these things are it's very divisive, right? And it's very intentional in how a lot of this is set up. Do you believe that originally when this blue check structure was implemented, do you believe that it's possible that it was done purposeful? Or do you believe maybe, okay, we started out with good intentions and then it took on a life of its own because of what you just explained with self-concept and identity and,
Mhm.
and the social component?
Um, well, I heard someone say before, cash is king. I think it's all very much driven by how do we make the most money. And that, of course, at the core is who we are as a society for the most part, because we do thrive in capitalism. However, I do believe that there was a protection component to protect those who may have been the most vulnerable, meaning, I don't consider myself a quote unquote celebrity. However, I have had people take my name and create accounts, and I've had to go and say, this isn't me. I promise really isn't me. And they're, having to drive that point home. So I do think it started out as, okay, we want to protect people, especially the celebrities, because we want them to use our platform. And they became influencers without being paid as influencers, right? Just by nature of who they are. So could it have started off very innocent? Absolutely. But I believe somewhere, someone in a very high place said, oh, we just created division between people who have a blue check versus people who do not have a blue check, and cut to the core of one's negative self-concept and inability to see themselves as valuable independently of a blue check.
Hmm. And Clydell was like, he believes that the scheme was there the whole time, that it was a setup to monetize. And I'll kind of weigh in on that as well. I think as you were talking about, it kind of got divided out. All of these social platforms are absolute geniuses at gathering data, statistics. So we always talk about in the class that I teach in consumer behavior that like a lot of these platforms are not social. They say they're social media platforms, but they're more like advertising machines first. They're all about gathering your data. How can we use and monetize your data? So I'm thinking as they saw that divisiveness, and this is just me, just my opinion, is that as they saw more people applying and kind of like you saying, acquiring, trying to, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? they were tallying that. There was some reporting that had to go on with that. And they knew the moment they opened that up for folks to buy into it, they knew they were going to make bank. And
Mhm. Mhm.
and I mean, let's just be honest. Facebook is paying out a 600 or $725 million settlement right now. And
Mm.
y'all just helped them make all that money back
Right, right. Yeah, in one day, right?
in one day. But when you see those numbers, Dr. Jada, for something like that to open up, so we talked about Twitter, I think was 11 million in 3 months. And then we had Instagram that opened up and they made an astronomical amount in one day. What does that trigger to you in your research, or what you what you were talking about as far as that social hierarchy and what you were discussing?
Yeah, I really think that when we look at social comparison, there has to be something within us that recognizes that who we are, it just is. We are who we are. However, I do recognize the importance of branding. You're a brand, Leah. I am a brand. And the reality is, I didn't realize how much of a brand I was until I started speaking out and saying what it is I thought. And I went, oh, okay, so now we have influencers who are making legitimate money, and I like to call it life support. If you have to pay your bills and you need to, um, you know, uh, bring your business to scale your business to a level where it allows you to take care of your family and things like that, I totally agree. However, I would say as a therapist, primarily, I would ask, what is the reasoning behind wanting the blue check? Again, I'm not saying the blue check is bad, but what I am saying is that if the blue check is going to shift your income or your revenue for your business so dramatically that it is going to improve your quality of life, I'm all for that. However, if this is a self concept issue, and when you were 13, you were always struggling with the haves and the have nots, or you had poor self concept, or in your family of origin, you were always told you were nothing and you never thought you were going to be something, and you're spending most of your time putting on the mask and putting on the face so that people think that you're something when really you're not, then that to me means that there needs to be a therapy session. There needs to be more deeper work that must be done. And so that's my opinion looking at it from both sides.
So really just taking a deeper dive and asking why. I was
Mhm.
having this conversation with a couple of friends of mine. We were just talking about like just spirituality and different things and how important it is just to ask why. Why
Mhm.
do you do the things that you do, or why would you be attracted to something like this? Because for myself, when it arose, I was like, I'm not buying it. Because I mean, now at the end of the day, to your point, if somebody was trying to mock my brand and it was putting it at risk, then absolutely I would do whatever it took to
Yeah.
protect it. But
Yeah.
as far as is Leah better, or will
Yeah.
Leah get more followers because of the check? My thing is you're gonna rock. I want the people that are gonna rock with me whether I have the check or not. And
Right.
and I'm very, and I'm self-confident in what I do. However, where I do go back and forth with is in advising my clients as a
Yeah.
publicist.
Yeah.
And like you said, using that scale to say, well, if this is going to help your business, help you make more money, put you on stages, or
Mhm.
when people
Mhm.
see it, they automatically associate you with, being at a certain level, then yes, go for it.
Yeah.
But I still struggle with why do you need it in the first place, outside of the privacy and the security issues, just setting that aside.
Mhm.
I still struggle and I can't stand that it's necessary, you know so
Yeah, and
oh no. Let's see. I think you're frozen, Dr. Jada, or maybe I'm frozen. Let's see.
Can you hear me, Leah?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you now.
When I'm working with my clients, one of the things that I always ask is, what is your why? The reality is, and I'm a huge advocate for promoting healthy self-concept, not only promoting healthy self-concept, but being able to recognize that we have the power to choose. We may not be able to control everything, but what we can control is we can control the decisions and the choices that we make. We can control being able to reframe our negative thoughts. We can control our emotions as much as some of my clients are like, no, Dr. Jada, I can't control my emotions. I'm like, yes, you can. But it's all about how do we develop a healthy toolbox, I like to call it, of emotional management tools, the necessary questions we need to ask ourselves to make the healthy decisions. The reality is, some of us are just being led blindly to drink the water, and we're not really sure why. And my thing is, what is your why? Why does this serve you? Is it going to increase your quality of life? Is it going to allow you, like I'm in the process of scaling my business. I haven't seen how that is going to help me scale my business. I just had a valuation on my business, and nobody told me to go and get a blue check to ensure that my business was scalable. But the point that I'm trying to make is, you know, don't be led to drink the water if you're not 100% certain for why you're drinking it. Now, if you say, I did my research, I gathered the data, I looked at my business, and my business will profit X amount of dollars in the next 90 days, or I will increase my bottom line by, 3% if I have, then I get it. Who am I to tell you that the blue check won't work? But always go for asking your why.
So, in your opinion, like where do you think we're headed? I feel like there's always some sort of dark road with social media, especially with mental health. And it's like our kids are already struggling. I'm an adjunct at two universities, and the first thing that always comes to my mind in anything that I do with my students is their anxiety and their social anxiety on top of that. And like you said, their self-concept.
Yeah.
Where are you seeing us headed?
Well, from a mental health perspective, I can just say that I've already seen it from the most, and I hate to say this sometimes, but some of my clients are extremely famous. And I don't mean like necessarily, I mean like really famous, like can't go places famous. And when I talk to them about how they view social media, they absolutely hate it.
Mhm.
And it does not serve them. However, they feel they have to do it. And of course, because they feel that they have to do it because of their fans or because of their sometimes it's just some of the companies who support them. It's really difficult. So that's one component of it. Then I go to the opposite end of the spectrum, to the 14-year-old who comes into my office and says that she's being bullied, which is really called relational bullying or relational issues, because she's being bullied by people that she knows in her school by way of social media. So I'm just giving a very broad spectrum, opposite ends, all the way to the single mom who is sitting back watching her other single mom friends thinking that they're doing it the best, and why isn't she be able to do what they're doing? And then my 67-year-old grandmother who's watching the other grandmother. So I'm just like, whoa, the impact. It's real, like it's real. It doesn't not affect anyone. Everyone is affected in some way. And so when I look at the depression, the anxiety, the unrealistic expectations, the inability to find legitimate support when you really need it, because now most of your friends are on Facebook, or you can't really pick up the phone and have a conversation, then I see us going down a road where people are no longer developing those healthy coping strategies that allow people to thrive in the present. We're
Yeah.
always looking down the road for what can be.
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, in my practice, mindfulness, and we talk a lot about this on Good Morning Texas as well,
Yep.
but that's one of the top things when I'm being brought in, whether it's for a corporation or whether it's for a conference. They don't care about any of the other types of meditation or any of the other types of wellness activities I could do. The ability to be present and not worry about your past or worry about the future, and to just find joy in the little things is
Yeah.
absolutely one of not only the most important things, but I think that it's like a lost art almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And, when you say that, Leah, that's one of the things that when I go in, they're like, "Can you do that thing that you did, when you came the other time?" And literally, it was a mindfulness exercise, because the reality is, how often do we really just stop and just sit in the moment, not think about the kids, not think about the spouse, not think about the agenda, not think about who's on social media, not thinking about, for me, the Warriors. I'm originally from San Francisco, the San Francisco Bay Area. So, the Warriors are winning now, but, we can get
You
caught
slipped
up.
it in.
What was that?
Sorry, man.
I know, I know, I know. But it's all the things though, right? It's all the things. And I have to say, my husband and I were San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys in one house. It's a serious thing.
I don't know how that works.
Barely, barely. But it's all the things that are taking place in our lives. It's the 80,000 pieces of information that we take in on a daily basis. And you asked, Leah, where are we going with this? The increase of anxiety, the increase of depression, the increase of burnout, the increase of substance use and abuse. I mean, I'm seeing very serious scenarios and diagnoses in my office that are triggered by basic situations and circumstances. But I believe it's the impact of being inundated with so much information that we haven't learned not only to unplug and disconnect, but we haven't learned the proper emotional and psychological management tools like the mindfulness. I believe in emotional freedom technique, which is the tapping. I believe
Yeah.
in prayer and meditation. I believe in taking a step back. And I did it today. I was just like, I had one meeting. I was like, you know what? I can't do that today. I apologize that I, overextended myself, but this is a boundary that I need to set. A lot of us don't know how to set the healthy boundaries. So there are a lot of elements, but I just believe that mental health issues are going to continue to increase if we aren't able to manage our why.
Woo. And you know what, Doc? I'm not even gonna put anything else after that. That is the mic drop right there. And I think that is at the core of the discussion today.
Yeah.
If you're tuning in, and I don't want to skip over your comment, Kendall. So he says he owns an internet gospel radio station. Would that benefit us? I think that's the crux of this entire conversation. Dr. Jada is saying, ask yourself why.
Mhm.
It's almost like you're going through a cost benefit analysis. Like it's
Mhm.
not as simple, just throw the $5 at it. It
Mhm.
really is you weighing the pros, the cons. How would this make you feel? It's a whole entire, it's deeper than just paying for this thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then Chandra had a comment, and she just says, comparing the illusion of a perfect life against your own real life is a lot. It's draining.
Right. Right. I agree, Chandra. It's exhausting. And at some point, when do you unplug?
When. And then Clydell has a long comment, but he says, thank you. Seriously, this has given him the perspective he's needed. And then so many other comments that just says it's a much needed conversation. And I'll be honest, when I approached Dr. Jada, it was like, this is not a bashing session. This
Mhm.
is not any type of judgment. I genuinely was having an issue.
Mhm.
And I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a counselor, but we've been so brainwashed. Like, it was bothering me, the fact that when you see it, your brain automatically prioritizes someone. And
Mhm.
that was bothering me. And then even knowing that now all these millions of users, and some may be your friends, your family,
Mhm.
your peers, knowing that they purchased it, and still your automatic association is to prioritize them.
Mhm.
That bothered me, to know that over the course of all this time, I have been socialized in this way. And I had to have this open discussion to say, as a PR professional, where I advise my clients on creating a perception, this bothers me.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and it's the manipulative factor that gets under your skin, Leah, as it should.
So, well, y'all, so Facebook user, I'm going to her site to see if Doc can take my insurance. Listen, insurance pays, and it gets you some mental health
So
and
help, yes.
tips. Go for it.
All the stuff, all the stuff.
Dr. Jada, before you leave, why don't you tell, we were talking about your journals and some of the things that you offer. So why don't you let the users know what you got going on?
Absolutely. So, again, going back to those coping skills, I believe in having resources. And so I have a series of journals. I have a mindset journal, which just happens to be my favorite. And it is a 52-week journal. It's on Amazon. And it's under Dr. Jada Jackson Mindset Journal and Planner. And then, of course, I have a couple of journals for men. I have a 3-minute journal for men, because men, you have to journal too. I just believe in it. And if I do, how much time do I have? I always want to say something about
We
journaling.
have plenty of time.
Okay. So here's my thing: journaling and affirmations. So the reason why this is important, and affirmations in particular, because I have to say this, every single moment, just like those 80,000 pieces of information we take in one day, every single minute we are laying down new memory. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because we have power, and that power is in our brain in the form of neuroplasticity. What does that mean? When I say affirmations, I have the power to restructure or remap my mind, restructure my brain. So, to rewire the brain, it really boils down to, what messaging are we telling ourselves? So, when it comes to journaling, I tell my clients, journal, say your affirmations. and be very cognizant of the self-talk that you perform on a day-to-day basis. And so if we want to grow, we have to do those things. And so I just wanted to say that because I believe that we have a toolbox or a tool belt that we don't even use because either we don't believe in it or it just takes too much time. But I just encourage you to do that.
And if you're gonna journal and you're not journaling, why not start with one of the journals that Dr. Jada Jackson has on
There you go.
jada.com or on Amazon? So you gotta start somewhere. And it's not, and I agree with you, it's not woo-woo. It's absolutely, absolutely essential.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think it could have you, I hate saying vibrate higher because some people don't
Mhm.
resonate with that, but it'll have you on a higher plane where things like this, well, you'll be able to see, to me, you'll be able to see the bigger picture because you've rewired your brain in a way to where your self-worth increases, your the value of yourself increases. And like you said, those affirmations kick in.
Yeah, and if there's a science behind it, right? We're creating new neural pathways every single time we engage in a conversation. We're doing it right now. We're creating those new neural pathways. We're engaging the neuroplasticity process, and we get to take that information and do what we want to do with it. And so, with that power comes some form of responsibility, right? That means we have to continue to tell ourselves, you know what? I'm going to ask myself the why. Why, yeah, why is that important to me? Is it important to me because I never received affirmations or I never received love from my mom when I was a child and therefore I'm trying to get it? Well, that's unhealthy. You need therapy, not whatever it is you're in search of. Or is it because you have abandonment issue? You know, one of the things that I do in my classes with my groups is I have them take an attachment style
Mm.
assessment so that they understand what are my attachment styles and do I have abandonment issues somewhere that may cause me to engage in certain behaviors that may be counterproductive to my growth, to my healing, to my prosperity. You fill in the blank, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I totally believe in personal and individual responsibility. What are we doing with the gifts that we are given?
That's incredible. I love that you hit on every single one of those. I can tell you were just a bomb therapist. Like, where were you when I was looking for a Black therapist? Where were you?
I don't know. I don't know. But
My feed was like BetterHelp, and I was like, no, I need somebody live and in person and like in Dallas. Like,
yes, and I am in Dallas. So yes, if and here's the great thing. I have a whole team of therapists under me as well that I continue to teach and to train. And because again, being genuine, authentic, the pretense, I engage in the pretense, but I know I'm doing it, and it's that awareness. It's being very much cognizant of why we're doing what we're doing. If my clients can't tell me why they're doing something, I'm like, okay, so we're going to have a long session today. Why are you doing certain things? And that's the question.
and I love that you've posed that, and I'm gonna definitely marinate on this. I think being in PR and dealing with publicity and dealing with public perceptions of brands and businesses and at from time to time pseudo celebrities, they're not major but pseudo,
Mhm.
it's something that I have to manage all the time. And I ask the client, like, well, why would you want that? Why is it hit or miss
Mhm.
if you don't get an essence? Why do you have to be on the, at the time when Black Enterprise had paper copies, but why do
Mhm.
you have to be on the cover of Black Enterprise? Like, why is that such a bad thing?
Mhm.
And then as publicists, we get it,
Mhm.
and it doesn't do what the client thinks it's gonna do, and then they mad at us. It's like, we got you the thing you were striving
Yeah.
for because you thought it was gonna do X, Y, and Z, and it didn't.
Mhm. And those are those unrealistic expectations that I was talking about earlier, because now we see other people doing certain things and the appearances that it appears that they're either blossoming or they're really where they're supposed to be. But the question is, what if they're not? What if it is just, oh, they were able to do this one thing, but not all of the other things that come along with it. You just never know. So
Mm-hmm. And Akila, one of my friends, said, Leah came with stats. I always come with some stats and some facts. And that's the next one I'm going to find is the statistics of people out here fronting and flexing for the gram. There's got to be some data statistics on that so that we can stop comparing ourselves to things that just aren't true. But
exactly.
with that being said, please follow Dr. Jada Jackson. She's absolutely incredible. Follow her on Instagram. Go to jadajackson.com. Purchase her journals if you don't have one. And anything else before we close out?
No, I just really appreciate you just letting me say what I want to say. You really didn't give me a, it wasn't like you have to say this, this, and this. Normally that's what I have to do, but I got to just speak from the hip today, shoot from the hip today. So I appreciate that. And I encourage anyone. I'm a true mental health advocate. So if you're not in therapy, get in therapy or find someone that you can talk to and continue to do the work, because we are continuously growing, but it has to be an intentional process.
Yes. And I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your Monday evening with us. This will be available on replay all throughout the different feeds. If you know of somebody that's struggling with this or maybe needed to have this conversation, please share this. This will be available audio on pryourselfwithleahfrazier.com, my podcast. So please go out, support, and subscribe. I love to have conversations like this with incredible guests like Dr. Jada Jackson. So I thank you once again. And I hope everyone, including you, Dr. Jada, that you enjoy the rest of your evening. And signing off. See you later.